Hello creative people and welcome back to the Makerspace. Well, the good news is there's only 345 days left until Christmas, so I thought we would get started on making some Christmas ornaments. I'm joking, obviously. I've been so busy since Christmas time putting together an ornament that I made for friends and family, and I had a lot of requests as to how I made them. So I thought I would take advantage of this time after Christmas now to show you how I made them. So this is the ornament that I made, and they were very fun to make. But I did learn some tricks along the way that I thought of if I was to do this in sort of a mass production type scenario. So the way that I did it was sort of a one-off type thing where I made a limited number for friends and family, and that worked out fine, but it was very labor intensive, and as I was doing it, I was kind of cursing myself and telling myself, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I did come up with some better ways to do certain things, so I thought I would share those with you now. What we're going to do is basically show how I went from this to this. So let's get started. So the first thing I did was I just laid out this quick sketch. This was the idea I had. I was thinking of doing something like a reindeer on ice skates. I thought that would be cute. So I drew this sketch, and the next step was to put it into the scanner and make a digital scan of this so that we could import that into CorelDRAW. So once we have it in CorelDRAW, then we can start laying out the different parts of this design and go from there. So let's go ahead and do that. Now that we have this imported in, I want to take this sketch and just bring the opacity down. So I'm going to trace on top of this sketch. I want to be able to see my lines that I draw. So to do that, I'm just going to click one time on this paper. Going to go over here on the blend tool, hold down the mouse button. You'll see here we have transparency. Going to go to that. And now up here where it says none, we want to use a uniform transparency, and it defaults to 50%. That's actually pretty good. I think I like that. Go with 50%. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this illustration, and I'm going to lock the object. So now the object can't move. If I click and drag, see what I'm doing? I'm clicking and dragging. It doesn't move the page. Let's see, if I right click again and I unlock the object, if I click and drag, it moves the sketch around. If I'm drawing, I don't want that to happen, so I want to make sure that the sketch is locked down. And so what I'm going to do is right click again and go to lock object. All right, so now that object is locked. So the next step would be to start tracing out our reindeer sketch. There's a couple easy ways to do an outline. One is to use the freehand tool, which is straight line segments, or you can use this 3-point curve tool. To do that, you would draw a line, you'd click and drag, and it uses like a Bezier type curve like this. You would continue with the next line segment starting on the node here, dragging it down, and then from there you would go to the shape tool and you would click like this. You could drag these arrows here to smooth out your curve. You can also window the node, right click and go to smooth. That helps. That's a quick way of making this a nice smooth transition here. You can see how that works. And then by using these little arrows and dragging them around, you can get it as close to match your outline as possible. That's one trick right there. If we delete that and go back to the freehand tool, now again, freehand tool is straight line segments. Let me show you this little trick. We can start somewhere, let's start here, for instance. We'll go here, and we'll go here, and we'll double click. As long as we double click, that tells CorelDRAW that we're going to continue with this line right from the end point of the last segment that we drew. So double click again, double click again, double click again, double click again, and you're going to see why I'm doing this here in a second. Double click again, double click, double click, double click, double click, and then one single click ends that segment. All right, once we have all those line segments drawn, we're going to right click anywhere on the screen and we're going to select to curve. That's going to convert all of those straight line segments now to curves. Now follow me here. Doesn't look like we've done anything yet, but wait, watch this next thing. With everything still selected, we're going to right click anywhere on the screen again, and we're going to click on Smooth. Now look at that. All we need to do now is click on the nodes that are at the ends of these line segments and drag these arrows to the right positions. We can do this all the way around. You can zoom in, you can see what's going on here. And it's actually kind of relaxing and fun just to go around these things. It really is. I enjoy doing this. It's fun to do these. You just kind of drag them around and you get the sketch as close as you can. Now here's something. Let's say you feel like you don't need this node right here because it's making the line go in a direction that you're not happy with. You can always double click on the node to make it disappear. See that? And now let's say we click on this. We can make it come down a little bit further. We can make this go up a little further. See, that looks nice. And here's another cool trick. The nodes are really helpful when you're drawing a shape that's complex. If the one node doesn't do the trick for you here and give you this transition that you want, what you can do is you can place nodes anywhere on that line that would be more helpful to you by double clicking. See there, I've added a node, and let's say here, I'll add a node here, and I'll double click on this one to delete it. Now look at that. I can take this node now and I can drag this down. I maybe put a node here and delete this one. There you go. See that? And now this here, maybe drag that up a little bit. There, that looks really good. I like that. Same thing over here. You can click and drag those nodes. There we go. There we go. Let's zoom out and see what we've got. Look at that. Pretty slick, huh? So you would just continue now going around your sketch. You want to make sure that the next line that you do, you can go right back here to the freehand tool again, select that. Click on the end point of that last line segment that you drew, double click. And let's say you're zoomed in tightly here like I am, but you can't see the whole design. You can continue to draw your outline around the whole shape this way, and then anytime you kind of bump around one of these borders of the sketch, it'll move the whole screen. If I go over here to this side, it moves it that way. If I go over here to this side, it moves it that way. If I move up, see what I mean? So you can really just stay zoomed in and then just double click, double click, double click. One single click ends the line. And then again, we go back here to the shape tool, window all those straight line segments, right click, to curve, right click again, smooth. Look at that. And what I usually do, you click one time in the screen, it kind of deselects the line that you've just created. And now you can go in and just select the node directly from that line right there. And you would just continue on around. Again, you can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out, select a node, drag these little arrows. You get the idea. So that's what you do. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to outline the rest of this sketch, and I'll show you what we do next. By the way, I wanted to show you a little tip here while we're into the illustration mode. When we use this freehand tool, as long as we're drawing, like I said, you want to double click, which tells CorelDRAW that you're going to continue. See, I just did one click. I just click here, click here. Since I didn't double click, CorelDRAW just drew one straight line segment. I could do the same thing if I went to the 3-point curve. I'd click and hold down, let go, and now I can drag with my mouse to make it a 3-point curve. But it's just one line segment. Same here, just one line segment. Now, if I want this to be a continuous outline all the way around like I've got here on this reindeer, I would need to draw the next line segment from one of the node endpoints. Click and drag. There we go. From the node again, click and drag. And now you'll see if I move this around, it moves as one segment. Let's go back to the freehand tool, for instance. If I were to click and drag, click, drag, these are just individual line segments. If I clicked on the end of the node and clicked out here just one time, it would connect that segment to the others that I've previously drawn. So the reason I'm showing this to you is because as long as this is all selected before I create the next line segment, it will add it to the previous line segments so that it sees it as one object. Now if I double click, double click, double click, single click, now I've closed the shape and this now is seen as one object. And this is important because let's say I drew a line segment, double click, double click, double click, single click. And I end that and I say, oh, you know what? I wanted to close that. And I go back here and I want to say click, click, click on that to end it and close it. I haven't closed the shape. What I've got now are two shapes. See that? Those are two shapes, not one. So if I didn't select this first, in fact, let's just delete this. If I didn't select this first, then go to my freehand tool, click, double click, single click to close it. That's closed. Let's go back, we'll undo that, back to where I had the two different segments. I'll undo, 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 undo. Okay, so here we have one segment here. I'll show you. See, one segment here. But I want to join these. Let's get rid of this guy right here because he's just kind of distracting us here. Same with that. So I have the one here and the one here. I want to join these together. You would window all of those segments here and you would use what they call the join curve command, and you would select this command and hit apply. And now it's joined together. See that? That's a super helpful tool. So here you can see I've taken the liberty of going around the whole shape, smoothing out everything as best I can. And also I've been thinking about how I want to break this design up into individual components. We want to obviously have the arms separate. We'd also like to have the legs with the skates on them separate. And in thinking about this design, I'm also thinking about what I'm going to make the design out of. This little ornament, initially I was thinking of making it out of thin plywood, but I know from past experience that when you get into these small shapes, especially like around here where the ankles are kind of narrow, these little shapes, these antlers right here where they connect to the head, those can be really delicate. So let's say you were making these ornaments and sending them through the mail. You know, you'd have to come up with a really secure way of making sure they arrive at their final destination unbroken, right? So that could be a challenge. So I'm thinking about making this out of mat board, like what you would see around a picture. You know, if you take a photograph or a picture and you take it to some place to have it framed, they will cut these mat boards. And oftentimes the places that will cut the mat boards will sell you the scraps. And I found a couple of these places locally here in my neighborhood that sell what they call the drops. So I buy them and I'm not really concerned about what colors they are. It could be any color. I'm more concerned about the thicknesses. I like to find these pieces of mat board that are thick so that if I do stack these things up in multiple layers, I don't have to use like 10 different layers to build up a nice thickness. I can use a thicker piece of mat board for, let's say, the core, and then use the thinner pieces on the exterior. And that's what I'm thinking of doing here on this ornament. So I'm thinking that if I had the body as my thicker core. Let's say the body would encompass the face with the nose and some ears, let's say, and this body. Then I could glue another piece to this that would be another outline of the body with the nose and let's say one antler, and then the other side would be the body with the nose and the opposite antler. And when we glue these three pieces together, you get a sort of a three-dimensional look like we have in our ornament. So I do the same with the arms as well. I would glue the arms on the left and right side and the legs on the left and right side. And that gives us a nice three-dimensional shape very easily without having to create anything complex. I also like to think about things like making the arms the same shape so we only have to cut two of the same piece. The right and the left are the same. The only difference would be we would flip one upside down. So in this case, on this side closest to us, the thumb would be up. On the other side, the thumb would be down, like it would be in real life. And the skates, the same thing. The legs with the skates, we glue them on. We can just reposition them so we get this kind of action look like he's skating. So I think that's what we're going to do. Here you can see I've broken these all down now into individual shapes. So again, the idea was I would have a thick center section that would be the core of my ornament, and that would be the face with the nose outline here on it, and I drew a second ear. I thought it was kind of odd to have a reindeer with just one ear. So I drew a second ear, and I've got his body right here. And so this will be the main core of the ornament that the other components will be glued onto. You can see here I've got, we'll say this piece could be the piece closest to us. So that would go on next. So let's say we take this piece here and we would glue that onto our core. And then we would take this piece next, glue this onto the opposite side of the core. See that? Now we've got both antlers and we've got the scarf. See that? If I undo, you'll see that. We have the scarf here on one side. So let's redo that. And one antler. And the other side has the other antler and the other scarf. And now when we glue those two pieces to the core, we end up with a nice three-dimensional look. And we would have to have a nose that we would cut out. That would get glued on both sides. So I'd have to have two of those that we laser cut out, right? And then we'd have the arms. So we have a right and a left arm. Let's say we take these arms here and we would glue those onto our body right there. And with the legs, same thing. We'd have a right and a left leg. So let's glue that on that side, and then on the opposite side, we'd have our other leg. So you can see now what we're doing with that. Let's say we want to rotate that leg a little bit. Here, we'll rotate that down a bit. There we go. Yeah, I like that. So that works. So now we can go out in the shop and look around our mat board supplies and see what we've got. So that'd be the next step. We need to source out the material. That's always the fun part. And then from there, we can start laser cutting some parts. This is looking good. Let's go. You know, they always tell you should have a plan B and everything, and this was no exception here. So the laser did a really nice job of cutting through this foam core material, both sides, nice and sharp. However, boom, look at that. It melted the center pretty badly. I thought initially I could maybe use these parts, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized I just can't. Yeah, that's not going to work. So, plan B. Booyah. Same thickness of material, 3/16, but it's made out of this plywood I got from Lowe's, this Revolution ply. I tell you what, it cuts like garbage in the laser, but I thought this would be a great way to use up some of that plywood that I had laying around, and I think this is going to do the job nicely. So we move on to plan B. Life is good. So now we've got all the parts cut out. We've got the plywood core that's going to be in the center of the ornament, and we've got our left and right components made out of this mat board material. It's about 50 thou, or roughly a 1/16 of an inch thick, and we can glue that onto the right and left sides of the core piece and build up the three-dimensional look that we're going for with our ornament. I started by painting the center body piece brown and used an X-Acto knife to hold the part while I was painting it. That really helped out a lot. Then I painted the skates silver, and then once that dried, I added the upper brown color and the lower black color to the boot area shown here. Then I painted the head parts brown and added the yellow to the scarf areas. And then the shirt area painted light blue once that dried. Then I added the red stripes on both scarves and added the eyes with the Sharpie markers and painted the antlers white, followed by the two red nose pieces. And then both arms were painted light blue and the dark blue gloves were painted last. And then here are all the parts ready to be assembled for the first time. So we start off with the left side being glued to the center body part first, then the right side. Then the left side arm is glued into position. Then the left side leg. And I put it in that posed position so it looks like he's skating. Then I flipped the part over and the right side arm was glued in place, followed by the right side leg. There you go. So both left and right side nose parts were then attached. Here I glued it on one side, then I flipped it over, glued the other nose piece on. Then the light blue shirt color is continued around the front of the ornament. That just gives a nice continuous look to the color. And then to the back side, here we did that. Then the red nose color is continued around the front, top and bottom. So here's the bottom, there's the top. Next, the yellow scarf color was continued around the back side. So I got in between the scarf area there and painted yellow in there. And then right there, you can see it. And then I did the same to the front area right there. And now here's our finished reindeer. Here's the other side. Next, I added a hole so that I could put a string in there so we could hang the ornament. And then here's the final project, ready to put in the Christmas tree. Ta-da! How about that? I really like the way this ornament turned out. And I can't thank you enough for stopping by today at the Makerspace. Look forward to seeing you again. If you've got any comments or any questions that you'd like to ask, please put them in the section down below and I'll get back to you. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me here at the Makerspace. Hopefully you'll come back and see me again. Take care. Bye for now.